Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of the Centurus Knowledge Series. Today, I'm very excited to present with you, with my colleagues here, the comparison of Power BI, Tableau, and Cognos, featuring demos of dashboarding capabilities between these three market-leading products. First, a couple of housekeeping items. Feel free to use the GoToWebinar control panel to make the session interactive. While your microphones are muted, you are encouraged to post questions via the question panel in the GoToWebinar control panel. You can also minimize and or restore the control panel using the orange arrow. I provide the caveat today that given the extreme substance of what we're covering here today, we're going to be really tight on time. So if you're willing to stay a little longer, we'll try to bang out some of the questions. Any of the questions that we don't answer live on the webinar, we will cover in the Q&A section or via a written response document that we'll post on centurus.com along with the contents of the webinar. Brings me naturally into the next slide. The first question we usually get or always get repeatedly is, can I get a copy of the presentation? And the answer is an unequivocal yes. It's available on centurus.com at the URL you can see in the presentation there under centurus.com/resources. Alternatively, you can click the URL link that is being posted in the GoToWebinar control panel. That recording will be there in a few days once we've had the chance to properly edit it. And be sure to bookmark that resource library as it has tons of valuable content addressing a wide variety of business analytics topics. Our agenda today, after we go through some quick introductions, we will do an overview of the comparison and why we did this in the first place. Then we'll hand it off to our Cognos presenter. We'll move on then to Power BI and wrap up with Tableau. After that, we'll give a Centurus overview for those of you who are new to Centurus, and we encourage you to stick around even if you have heard that, because we get into our great mostly free or entirely free additional resources and, of course, the always valuable question and answer session at the end. So introducing today's presenters, I'm pleased to be joined by a truly all-star lineup here, starting with Pedro Inning on the Cognos side. He's one of our senior BI architects, and he comes to us with more than 2 decades of BI and data warehousing experience. He's been instrumental in implementing data warehousing systems from the ground up and has experienced the evolution of the BI industry through several iterations of BI products, including Cognos, MicroStrategy, and Tableau. Our next presenter will be Sean Alpay, representing Microsoft. He is a business intelligence architect here at Centurus and has spent the last 15 years designing and implementing Microsoft-centric BI solutions for clients, including ETL, data warehouse reporting, and analysis solutions from the ground up. In his various roles, he serves often as the project manager and the business analyst, partnering directly with clients to gather requirements and deliver valuable insights. And then bringing up cleanup is going to be Kyle Bealey, who's one of our senior Tableau solutions architects here at Centurus, who also has over 2 decades of experience in data analytics, 11 of those years working with Tableau. Kyle focuses on helping clients use Tableau in novel and efficient ways by helping them see and interact with their data in ways they hadn't before. My name is Mike Weinhauer. I wear a number of hats here at Centurus, ranging from training to our Tableau practice to our analytics connector software line, and I'm fortunate enough to be the host for these knowledge series events. So as usual, we do try to get a finger on the pulse for our audience here, and I'd like to ask you all the question today. So sit up and grab your mouse. Which platforms are you currently using in your organization? You can select all that apply. Do you use Cognos Analytics, Power BI, Tableau, and or something else? And we'll give you about 30-45 seconds to respond. We're at about 2/3 of the audience here. You guys are quick. I almost had coffee before this event. Great, we're about 80%. Get those votes in and I'll close this thing out in another 5-6 seconds. All right. And the results are, approaching 2/3 using Cognos Analytics here, around half to a little more using Power BI and or Tableau, and a full quarter of you using something else. Interesting. Great, so thank you very much for interacting with us and helping us, again, get a finger on the pulse of our audience. And with that, we're going to, I'm going to jump into the comparison between Power BI and Tableau. And what we have here is, today we have something here that we believe is unique in the industry. 3 market-leading tools being demonstrated head-to-head across a single data set, replicating a single dashboard. We'll take roughly 10 minutes, give or take, for each tool. And we hope that you enjoy hearing from our experts as they show you how things can be very similar and point out some of the areas of differentiation between the products. Now, we do that by tracking over 150 different attributes across these 3 different tools. And while we don't have time to go deep into this, we'll give you a partial snapshot of what that list looks like. We provide ratings, notes, links, and caveats to give you a deeper understanding of how of the various attributes, where the vendors stand, as well as how we came to that conclusion to give it that ranking. The reason that we did this is actually fairly simple, because none of the information about the rapid proliferation of these tools based upon the increasing demands of users, the aging systems that aren't meeting the needs of end users and organizations, the rise of user self-service and the need for scalability, consulting firms that are aligned more closely with vendors versus clients will be a surprise to anyone here today. And what we believe is unique is our approach, and has come out of a response to clients who were finding themselves just getting started looking at the tools or in the midst of an implementation. So it's hard to keep up with the rapid release schedules and ever-changing capabilities of these myriad tools. Tableau releases a product every 3 months or so, and Microsoft releases a new release every month. Even Cognos has gotten into the game here with releases roughly every quarter to a third of the year. And it's really fascinating to watch the competition kind of ping pong back and forth and watch these features ripple out to different product releases across the platforms, including things like artificial intelligence and natural language processing, the support for local files and local web-based metadata modeling, and Python and R integration, just to name a couple. So we do offer a full tool comparison if you want to go deeper on any of these things. So today's presentation is just a snippet. There's no way we can really be comprehensive in an hour, but we can walk you through the entire ratings grid and provide guidance and focus on the capabilities that are most important based upon your company's priorities. And so you can see the offer we have here. If you're interested in that, reach out to us, and we will credit the cost of this against any future services or training purchases. So with that, I'm going to hand the floor over to our first presenter, Pedro, who is going to walk us through the Cognos dashboard demo. Pedro?
Thank you. Let me get over here. Change quite a list on this thing here. Organizer me, show my screen, and tell me when you can see.
I got it. If you could just maximize that. Perfect.
There we go. Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. Well, Cognos is up first. And well, Cognos has been around for quite a while. And we see here we got about a 62% Cognos Analytics usage here on the poll. But as many veteran Cognos users know, the product has evolved significantly throughout the years. If you're a real veteran Cognos user, you could even say that maybe the Cognos Transformer desktop product was an early predecessor to the modern day Tableau. And Cognos generally has followed a fairly strict paradigm of centralized governed metadata. Now, IT generally would develop the FM model based on some specifications and databases, and they would create packages that consumers would have to then access the packages and write reports and dashboards. But there was this long wait because they would have to wait before the data was modeled and packages were published out to their portal. Well, now Tableau and Power BI has really pushed the new paradigm of data democratization and the self-service aspects of user-driven data prep and modeling. And with that, Cognos Analytics version 11 and now 11.1 and subsequent releases, IBM has responded and has given Cognos Analytics self-service data prep features that are almost on par with those of Tableau and Power BI today. So in today's Cognos demo, I'm going to quickly show in a span of about 10 minutes or so I will try to show how we model data in a data module, create a quick dashboard, and then show the final dashboard that will also be shown in both Tableau and Power BI. So for today's demo, as you see here on the PowerPoint, we are using Cognos 11.1, and to be specific, we're using 11.1 R3 today, release 3. And also a key architectural decision was that we are not using Framework Manager to model the data. So for you veteran Cognos users, in version 10 and before, the main tool that you had to use was a desktop client tool to model the data in Framework Manager, then publish the packages to the portal. We're going to use the newer data modeling features of 11.1. We're going to model the data in data modules and show you some of the data prep features. And we're going to upload files, and we're going to create data extracts. These are the things that we use to create the final data module that the dashboard is going to be using. So let's quickly go through a flow of how that's happening. So for the demo data, what this is trying to show is kind of where the sources came from. So on the left are the sources, and on the upper left corner, you see SQL Server on Azure. Both the Power BI and the Tableau dashboards are using the same database source. And it is the Wide World Importers common data set that Microsoft used for a lot of its demo purposes. So we're going to be using that. And in Cognos 11.1, I'm going to create a data module off of that database instead of Framework Manager. And that's the key point I want to show, and we'll do a quick demo on that. And then we're going to create a data set. And also now with Cognos 11, I could take external files like Excel and drop them into Cognos 11.1, an uploaded file, and then create a further data module, which will then integrate that data into a data module that the dashboard is going to use. Okay, so that's basically the flow of what we're going to do. So I'm going to quickly go ahead and create a sample data module so you can see what this part here looks like. So I'm now in my Cognos instance, and we're going to go ahead and create a brand new data module. And I already have my data server connection set up. So this is that SQL Server database on Azure. We've got two schemas up there. I'm going to select them. I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to select some tables. So I'm going to select the customer, the date. These are dimensional tables because they're in the dimension schema. I'm going to select stock item. I go to my fact. I select my sales table, and I say OK. We are now brought into the data module painter or designer. And this is the part that takes the place of Framework Manager. Here are the tables I brought in. I'm in a grid mode right now. I could click on the customer and I could see sample pieces of the data over here. Okay. And over here on the relationships painter, if I click on this, I can now see the entities that I brought in, the tables. And what I generally have to do, the sales tables over here as part of the star, it kind of looks like this. I have to create relationships in these tables in the data module painter. I'm going to go right click over here, create relationship. Here's my stock item table. I'm going to create a relationship to the fact, the sale. I'm going to join my stock item key, the stock item key over here. I'm going to match the selected items. I'm going to refresh the data. And there we have the join over here. And here's a sample view of what that join data looks like. And I'm going to say, OK. I would do the same thing for all these tables here, establish the relationships. I'm basically building out this data module, if you want to call it package from the older version, package, but this is what's going to be presented to the user as they build out reports and dashboards. The other thing quickly from the data module perspective, I could organize the data module so it's easy for people to work with. I could create folders. I can call that, for example, the keys. I want to put all my key attributes over here. I could quickly drag that in. So I could quickly organize the table structure here for presentation to be something the users would like to see. And finally, from within data modules, I can actually create calculations here. And maybe I want to create a percent profit calculation. I'm going to rename that profit, and I'm going to take the profit divided by the sales, put a divider by there, and I'll say OK. So that's just a quick view of how the data module is created. Let's go back now to my Cognos homepage. I'm going to go ahead and create a dashboard now off the finished data module. So we're going to go into the data module and back to my diagram over here. After I did all this integration, I'm going to go create a dashboard off of this, the final data module, which has all the integrated sales files and tables, joins here all together. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say create dashboard. I'm going to choose a default template. I've brought into the painter. This is my new dashboard. And if I want to start creating 8 KPIs for my dashboard, I could simply drag the metric over here. It's going to select the correct visualization. And for this example, I'm showing the profit. And this could be a KPI over here. Over here, I have my sales I could show. There's my sales figure, a KPI. But as you can see, I might need to do some formatting on that. So it's quick and easy to do some formatting on that particular KPI. I could just click on number. I could click on abbreviate. I'm done. And I now abbreviated that large number in 172 million. So I'm quickly painting now within the dashboard painter some KPIs I could put at the top of the screen for a typical dashboard layout. From the visualization perspective, there are a variety of visualizations that Cognos has here in the dashboard product. I'm going to choose my line visualization. And in this example, I need to give it some information to draw this particular graph. So we're going to do a line graph, sales by month, by year. So we're going to show it by month on the x-axis, and we're going to show sales on the y-axis. See, it's already starting to visualize over here. And I want to show multiple years, so I'm going to put that in the color slot. So these are slots. Okay, and I could quickly show that and then bring it down here. And now I've rendered it on my dashboard painter. And as you can see, this number looks pretty large. I can also go in here again and format that number within the visualization. Again, I could do a quick abbreviate so that Cognos would choose the correct abbreviation for that. And now it looks a lot tighter. It's in millions right here. So I've got basically 3 visualizations on my dashboard over here. That's a quick create. I'm going to now show you the actual dashboard, finalized dashboard that the other folks are going to show you as well within Power BI and Tableau. This is how it looks like in Cognos rendered out. I'm going to maximize my screen so you get a full view of it. What I did was push the maximize button so that you don't see all the Cognos application bars and things. So it looks like a regular kind of dashboard, and you won't know it's even Cognos here. So what I did in my dashboard creation, I created a couple of metrics which are up here, a couple of KPIs, and I created this line graph over here. Over here is a map which shows you by state the sales and profitability of the state for this data set. Over here, we have drop-down menus which we can now interact and change the numbers based on what we want to show. And we want to show, for example, 2016 Q1. If I click OK, the numbers will change to reflect that particular choice. And I could also change the sales territory over here to New England and say OK. And the map over here is going to zoom in on the New England area so I can get a better look of what's happening. One comment on these drop-down list boxes, what you're going to see different in the Power BI and the Tableau presentation is that they have their drop-down list boxes over here on the side. It's because they can still stay as a drop-down list box. If I actually drag this over here onto my painter, what Cognos is going to do is render a full list box, which I don't like. I'm hoping for new versions, so eventually when you put this list box over here, you have the option to put a drop-down list box. Just a commentary as you start to see the other versions of this of Power BI and Tableau with their versions of the dashboard. Now over here on this map, if I hover over this dot over here, I could get a tooltip which shows me the specific detail of that particular spot, and that's the state of Maine, and they had sales of about 196,000 and a profitability of 52.6%. Another comparison point between Power BI and Tableau is that they have this feature called tooltip reports, and what you'll see below this tooltip area, you'll see graphs and charts which give you more detail in a graphical manner about what makes up that particular dot on the map. We have a similar feature in Cognos, but we have to kind of drill through to a different report. So if we drill through, and I'm going to choose, I've set this up for 2 choices. I could use the reporting tool in Cognos, and for those of you who've done reporting in Cognos, this is basically where this is coming from. I created a report studio report, and what it's going to do is render a chart based on the parameters I chose from that widget visualization on the dashboard. So if you remember, I chose 2016 Q1 sales by employee for the state of Maine. And here are the employee lists over here specific to that particular choice. I'm going to go back to my dashboard over here. And if I wanted to choose a different report, I could go drill through again and say I wanted to see the list of employees who sold into the state of Maine and the invoices, the specific invoices here. So here we are still with the state of Maine. Remember the choice was 2016 Q1, and I have invoice sales, sales profitability, and I'm using the Report Studio conditional formatting to get some red and greens or grays, depending on what the ranges you choose. So you have the ability to go back and forth between a more detailed report and going back up to the higher level visualization of the dashboard. So you're not just limited by high level metrics. You can get to very detailed reporting from this particular interface. Okay. And one thing else I want to point out from a visualization perspective, as of 11.1, they did integrate a bullet chart here in Cognos 11.1, where this is showing sales by employee as relative to goal. There's your goal target, sales goal, and here's the actuals in the blue bar. And you can kind of scroll up and down here. One thing I wish that Cognos would do, which the other tools do a little bit better, is that I would like to be able to have this scale only appear either on the top or the bottom, and then I could have the bullet pieces here shrink down and remove some of the white space. So hopefully that'll be another area that Cognos will kind of improve on. But just as something to use in comparison to what you're going to see on the other tool sets. Finally, I want to make one other point. Cognos is a fully web-based tool. So you saw there was no publishing here at all. I did all my data module designing and joining and creation and bringing in data on the web interface. There was no desktop product. I went over to the dashboard painter and I quickly created visualizations and I saved it. And then once that's done, it's on the web and other people can consume it. So there's no lag in terms of publishing or putting things in a package and bringing it up into the web or a different server. Once you're on Cognos, and you can create and publish and save it there, and it's already there in the web interface. Okay. So what I've done quickly is just show you at a very high level, a taste of how we actually brought data in. We modeled the data real quickly. We created a dashboard of the resulting data module and showed you how those visualizations were brought in fairly easy. I showed you the final product of what could happen off of that data with integrated data from Excel and databases. And I'm going to hand it over now to Sean Alpay, who will show this same dashboard and the flow in Power BI.
All right, Pedro, thank you very much. I'm going to do my best to give you an overview of Power BI in comparison to that tool and in comparison to Tableau, building on the concepts, some of the basic concepts that Pedro talked about in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. I'll try to filter that through the lens of this particular tool. First, I want to talk you through the core concepts in Power BI and a basic workflow. This isn't going to cover everything, but this is going to cover how we take the data that we saw in Pedro's presentation and get it to a report that you can consume in this product. So first of all, we start with the data sources. Like what Pedro showed, we're going to use SQL Server and Excel for goals. And we're going to bring that in via queries into a model. And, it'll take some time to bring in the tables, create relationships, etc. A lot of the stuff that we saw Pedro do. Together, those things form what we call a data set. And we're going to develop this using queries into the model and then use that data set to build multiple pages of a single report. Those two entities together, we are going to develop those in Power BI Desktop. It's a client we install on our machine. All right, once we've done that, Let me review. First of all, the data set consists of two objects. It's the queries, which this is how we're going to define our extract and transform of data sources that are accessed via connectors. The model itself is going to be our metadata definition, so tables, relationships, columns, etc. Right? And then our report is going to be how we visualize that data set. Once we've done all that, we're going to then publish it up to the cloud. So that's what's called the Power BI service. This is powerbi.com. So imagine we've taken our data set and report and we've published those up. This is going to go in what we call an app workspace. This is kind of our development space where we're going to curate the artifacts we create before we publish them out for users to consume. So we may have another data set we publish, we may have more reports we publish, and then we may take particular visuals from those reports and do what's called pinning into a dashboard. So this is just not pages from the reports, but the visuals, the bar charts, the graphs, etc. And then we are creating those in the app workspace. That's another artifact alongside the data set and report, but they only exist out in the service. From there, we can then curate a subset of these and publish them into an app. This is our production space where we're going to expose these to users. So in this case, it's just a portion of the things that we put in our app workspace. Then users are going to interact with the app in a few different ways. They can consume those visuals. They can create their own visuals. In this example, we talked about creating a report in Power BI Desktop. We can also do that in the service. And then we can also analyze in Excel. This is a true differentiator, I think, for the Power BI platform. We can then launch Excel connecting out to the cloud and crack open a pivot table and then start consuming the model and the data set we created. And this is, of course, fabulous because the average analyst, of course, knows how to use a pivot table in Excel, and this is a huge value add for them. So to review, the dashboard presents visuals, which are pinned from reports. The app workspace is the draft container for those objects. The app is the production space. And then the gateway, which we're not really going to talk about, is the thing that lets the service connect back to those data sources. If we want it to be refreshing our data set out in the cloud, we need to be able to use a gateway to get all the way back to that on-premises SQL Server resource. In this example, it's Azure, so a gateway is not necessary. But just know that if we're using on-prem resources, a gateway is involved. All right, that's a lot of information, but we only have a few minutes, so I had to breeze through that very quickly. Let's jump over to Power BI. We're looking at a blank canvas. The way we get data is to go into this list of get data here on the top left. I'm going to click more just to give you a feel for all of the custom and stock connectors that Power BI carries. It's a huge list. We're not going to talk about all of them, but just know that they're adding more connectors all the time. But we see Excel, we see CSV, XML, SharePoint Access. We're going to go to database, and this is a subset of those connectors. We're going to click SQL Server Database. I'm not actually going to step through this process for the sake of time, but just imagine that we put in our credentials, we pull in the tables, we create the relationships, very similar to what Pedro did, except we're doing it in, of course, in Power BI Desktop. The final result of that is this model, which is all the tables that we brought in, right, and all their relationships. And this is the thing we're going to use to then create measures, maybe rename columns so they're business friendly, hierarchies, etc. So we're going to go back to our report pane, and we're going to create some measures. And the measures exist in DAX, data analysis expressions. So I'm going to create a quick measure. This is really simple stuff. It's very Excel-like in its function-based formatting, but let's say we're going to create sales dollars equals the sum of a column. In this case, it's the total excluding tax. So we hit that, and that's it. It's very straightforward, and now we have a measure called sales. I'm going to create a couple more here just for the purposes of demonstration. I'm going to create now a profit one, which is going to be profit dollars equals sum of the profit field. And I'll create one more, which is profit percentage, which is taking one and dividing it by the other. So we're going to now take profit percentage equals divide, and we're using a divide function rather than an actual division, so we can handle gracefully if we happen to divide by 0. So I'm going to say sales profit divided, and with a comma, by sales. And now we've created a measure, and we can immediately start using that measure so that we just grab this and we drag it onto the canvas. It defaults to a bar chart, or a line chart rather, but we're going to very easily be able to change it to whatever we want. In this case, let's change it to a card, so we're just displaying a number. It's 0.50. We want to make this a percentage, so we want to tell Power BI Desktop this is a percentage. So I'm going to go up here and hit Format and go to percentage, and we're going to see in the visual this change. Now it's 49.77%. But I only want one decimal, so I'm going to bring it from 2 to 1. Now it's going to be 49.8. Great. Let's quickly create a line chart. So we're going to create a line chart here, and I'm going to bring in sales in the values, and then I'm going to go over to the date dimension, and I'm going to grab my year, and I'm going to put that in the legend, and then I'm going to grab my month of year, and I'm going to put that in the axis. So you can see once we've curated the model, how quickly we can start spinning up visuals. The hard part is putting together the model, and I know that we breezed past that, but the relatively easy part is dragging and dropping, creating new visuals, etc., from a development perspective. Okay, so I'm going to jump over to the final product. I'm not going to actually flesh all this out. Now we're looking at the final product, which is very, very similar to what Pedro presented. We've got our map here. What I'm able to do if I hover over this map is it's going to create a tooltip report, which Pedro mentioned is not possible in Cognos. We see here the breakdown of California alone and the various locations within California presenting 50%, below 50% being red and above being gray. So that's really cool. If we float over here, just like what Pedro showed, we can right click on this thing and we can go to drill through and we can go to invoice details. And that brings up another page on the same report, but now it's automatically filtered for just Tailspin toys. Okay, I can go back to overview. We have our filters here on the left, so we can choose an employee and we can just say, let's look at Amy Truffle, and it will automatically, of course, filter the entire report to just show things for Amy. The bullet chart here on the bottom left, I want to talk about for a second. Like we saw here, we have a context menu. I'm right clicking on this thing and nothing is happening. That's because this is a custom visual. This is not a stock visual. And so it was developed by a third party. And this particular custom visual is about 2 years old. It's available in the Power BI marketplace and you can download it and it's great. But if the developer has not implemented certain functionality that Microsoft has enabled, those things won't work. So Microsoft in the last, I believe 6 or 9 months ago, enabled custom visuals to use context menus. I know that's very specific, but that's an example of how this product is still maturing every single month. But this particular developer that created this particular visual has not yet implemented that. The alternative would be to use the Microsoft stock visual for bullet charts, which in my estimation is awful. So that's why we are choosing the lesser of two evils here. That is just a super quick overview of the report. The next thing I would do is go up here and hit publish. I'm going to skip publishing. I'm going to jump over to Google Chrome and we're going to jump into powerbi.com. We're looking at the Wide World Importers app workspace that I created. And we have some various artifacts we can look at here, reports, data sets. We're not going to talk about the rest of them right now, but I'm going to click Wide World Importer Sales. And we're going to bring up that report that I theoretically just published, and it's going to look exactly the same. The one difference here is that the pages are going to be here on the left versus in Power BI Desktop, they were on the bottom. Power BI, they're still changing the visual experience. A lot of the stuff has just changed even in the last couple of months. If you haven't cracked open Power BI for a while, you may be surprised to see kind of a light theme going on here. It was more of a dark theme earlier. So these things are changing very quickly. You can see here a new look on toggle. That's because they just implemented that in the last couple of months, and I'm sure in the next couple of months, they're going to turn off that functionality and you will default to the new experience. Anyhow, the report was exactly the same. It operates exactly the same. I can actually edit the report here if I want. I can create a new report, et cetera, et cetera. But the last thing I want to show you is the Analyze in Excel functionality. So I'm going to go back to the workspace. I'm going to go to the data set, and I'm going to go to actions here. There's a lot of different actions we can take, but the action I'm interested in is Analyze in Excel. So I click that. It's going to download an ODC file to my computer. I'm going to click the ODC file. It's going to fire up Excel. It's going to ask me to enable a security notification. I'll say enable. And then it's going to open up a pivot table, which is connecting out to powerbi.com. That same model that I used to create the report is actually here in the pivot table. I haven't actually downloaded any data. It's just the metadata information. So imagine if you know how to use a pivot table, how great this is. You can just pull sales into the values. Let's say we want to grab sales territory and put that in the rows. And we see that here. And you can just start going hog wild with this thing. Instead of having to do your analysis from a visualization standpoint, you could then use this, of course, for building other reports or feeding some other thing within the Excel ecosystem. So that's it. I know I've breezed through this very, very quickly, but obviously we only have an hour to cover all this. There's so much more I haven't covered, but I hope that gives you a good high-level understanding of how we would go from soup to nuts for this particular set of data sets, building these in Power BI. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kyle.
Hey guys.
Kyle, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I'm trying to change presenter here. Hang on one second. A lot of people to go through. All right. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep, you're good, Kyle.
Okay, great. Hi everybody. My name is Kyle Bealey. I'm bringing, as Mike mentioned, I'm going to be bat and cleanup today. It's a tough couple of presentations to follow. I'm always so impressed by how much Sean and Pedro know about their tools, and they also can cram a lot of information into a short amount of time. So I've got about 12 minutes to try and get you guys a good taste of how Tableau is similar and different to the two tools you've already seen. This is a really simple representation of the products that Tableau offers. Tableau Desktop is the primary product that they've had from the beginning. And I've actually been working with Tableau since they only had Tableau Desktop, which is in version 3. That's the primary tool that the analysts use to connect to data and to build visualizations. And those visualizations can be published on server. There is an on-premises version of Tableau Server that you can manage on your own site, or there's also a cloud-based offering called Tableau Online, which you can use. And Tableau Prep is the newest product that's been introduced to the Tableau universe. It's actually kind of basically your own ETL tool. It allows you to do data modeling and cleansing and cleaning and combining of data sets. So this is how those tools all kind of work together. Like I said, the Tableau professional, the BI professional kind of sits in the center here, and he can either use Tableau Desktop to connect directly to different data sources, and similar to Power BI, and Cognos as well, there are just a myriad of data sources and connectors that Tableau has built, and they're constantly adding to that environment. When a new database pops up on Tableau is usually right on it to create a connector for it. So you can connect to Tableau Desktop directly, which is what I'm going to demo today, or you can use Tableau Prep to connect to those and build, like I said, custom data sets, and then visualize those in Desktop, and then share that on server, and then those dashboards or charts or reports can be consumed, shared with your organization via browser or mobile app. So this is just a quick view of what was similar to what Pedro presented. I'm just showing us how we are combining two data sources for this specific wide world importers dashboard. We're using connecting data from SQL Server on Azure, and we're also bringing in an Excel spreadsheet. In Tableau, there's a number of ways to do this. The way that I'm going to be using the data is by blending these two data sources. So we aren't combining them into one data set. They're actually independent data sources in my workbook. And then I blend those together to create just the one chart that we've shown, this bullet chart. That's the only one that's actually using the target data. Everything else we're demoing is using the wide world importers data. So with that, I'm going to jump over to Tableau. So this is basically when you open up Desktop, this is what you see. I've already got some data sources connected here, but this is sort of like the blank canvas in Tableau. So just to show you how the data looks, this is the Wide World Importers data set. So here we basically, there's not a lot of modeling required. You'll see here's the database, and these are all the tables that are available to me. I've already pulled in those tables that I'm going to be using to build my dashboard. The joins are, in this instance, they've been predefined by the database, so Tableau can use those, but you can also create your own custom joins to pull it together however you want. You can do inner, outer, just basic database SQL joins. Once I've got this here, I can update and look at the data, kind of do a quick inspection. Okay, let's try that again. Do a quick inspection of the data to see what the fields look like, what the data looks like inside my fields, or I can look at this as a field layout view. So here's all the fields organized by table and the type of fields that I'm working with. So when I jump back to my Tableau workspace, we'll see here are those tables. And what Tableau does is it organizes these. It basically takes your tables and splits the fields in those tables into dimensions and measures. And dimensions are those types of fields that basically you can group by, you can create you can create aggregations on. So for example, customers or employees or regions or states, they're text fields, they're string fields, they're date fields, they are geographic fields. And measures are those fields that come in as numbers, and Tableau thinks it's something you might want to actually do some sort of calculation on. So it basically just does that quick split. And in Tableau, you'll see each one of these fields has a little icon next to it. So the icon is sort of predetermines where it might show up in your view. So I want to kind of, want to make sure we touch on all the things that Pedro and Sean showed you guys so you can see how the tools kind of look and feel different. So one of the things they both did was create a profit calc. So I'm going to do that, and the way Tableau does that is it's similar to the functional language like Sean showed you. It looks a lot like Excel or SQL, but I'm going to create a calculation based on the profit value in my database, and I'm going to say create calculated field, and I'm going to call this profit percent, and that calculation is going to be sum of profit divided by sum of total excluding tax. You see on the right here, we have this list of, these are all the functions that are available to me that come pre-baked in Tableau. And each one of those, when you mouse over it, you can see the different types of parameters that might be used. So it's a nice handy sort of like, steps you through what you need when you're creating calcs. Another nice handy feature is when I'm doing this is, you'll see down here, it says this calculation is valid. If I didn't complete it properly, an error will come up. And it'll give me some sort of hint as what I'm missing. So it's kind of nice when you're doing more complicated calculations to kind of troubleshoot what's going on. So now I've got my profit percentage. So now I want to use that. I want to create this profit percentage KPI chart. So one thing you might notice it's already different, that's different from the way the other guys are working, specifically Pedro, is I'm not building charts in a dashboard. I'm building, in Tableau, you basically build your charts or reports one at a time and then pull those into a dashboard. So right now I'm working on a specific sheet. So I'm going to craft this KPI sheet, and then I can combine that or pull that into a dashboard at a later point. When I double click on that element, when I double click on profit percentage, Tableau takes a guess as to how it thinks I want that data to be displayed. And it's saying, I think he thinks I want a column or bar chart. There's a nice little show me window on the right that you can use. It tells you these are basically the available chart types in Tableau, and it highlights those that are actually available or make sense based on the data that's currently in your visualization. I wanted to show this as a number, so I'm going to select the table view. And now I've got this tiny little number. Like the other guys showed, we can easily set the formatting of this number. I'm going to set the default format, so every time I use it, it comes back to the same format. So now it's going to change it to a percent. Maybe I want this to be a little bit bigger since it's a KPI. I'm going to bump this up to say 28. Okay, so now I got a nice big KPI. I'm going to call that KPI. All right, so that's my first chart. Let's do another one. Let's build it, show you how it works to build the trend chart, similar to what Pedro and Sean did. In this example, I'm going to use the total sales as the sales amount as total excluding tax. Double click that again, same idea, brings in this bar chart, columnar bar, but I want to show this over time. So I'm going to bring in the date field. When I double click that, you'll notice that it swapped from a bar chart to a line chart. This is something that Tableau has had in their DNA from the beginning. This idea of they're constantly trying to kind of help you work through the best practices and how your data should be presented. Now it knows you're creating a trend chart, and it's saying, okay, a line chart makes the most sense for a trend chart. But now you'll also notice that my show me window has expanded. There's a number of different visualization types that I could use based on the data that's in my element. Just by adding date, all these other elements appear. So you'll see it defaulted. I double clicked on date, but it brought in as year of date. This is something that Tableau has always done as well. There's a hierarchical, there's an embedded hierarchy that Tableau establishes on date fields. So it starts with year, and this little plus sign allows me to expand that out. I want to get down to month to have it show up like the other guys. But now, so this is by year, by quarter, by month, which isn't exactly what I want. So I'm going to pull quarter out of that. Now I've got it, running totals or running them out by month, by year. But I want to be able to show those years stacked on top of each other. So the way I would do that in Tableau is I'm going to grab this year pill, these are called pills, and put it on the color shelf. So now it's going to dimension my data to create one line for every year. And now I've just got the months up here in the trend. So I'm going to call this my trend. Okay. And I'm going to show one more chart type here, just to show you how easy it is to create a map in Tableau. When you see these little globe icons, that means that Tableau recognizes those values as geographical values that they can use to actually plot on a map. So I'm going to actually create one that's done by state. So when I double click on state, same idea, just drops in longitude, latitude, it draws a map and it puts a mark on every state in my data set. And then I can quickly add some, what do I want to show on this map? I want to show total sales by state. So double click on total sales, takes a guess, it says, oh, you want to see sales, we're going to actually increase the size of the marks to indicate sales. If I also want to show profit, it's like I want to show what's the profit percentage on each of those states. I can drag that to the color shelf. It's going to default to this blue palette, and maybe I want it to be red to black like the other guys have shown in their demos. So change that to red to black, apply, okay. So now I have a map showing sales and profit by state. You call this map. Now let's go, we're going to pull all these together in a dashboard. So now I click the dashboard, the Add Dashboard tab. You'll see in my dashboard window that the 3 charts that I've created are available to me here. And I can just double click them and it'll pop them into the sheet. So double click on KPI, double click on trend, and I'm going to drag map to the bottom. I want map to be a little bit more important, have a little more real estate. The one other thing I want to demo on this dashboard, so now I have a dashboard with 3 charts on it. You saw I did that in roughly 5 minutes. You can use this as a filter. So I can just say, I want to filter the rest of my dashboard based on a click action on this chart, on this sheet. So if I want to see, I want the rest of the dashboard to filter for New Mexico, I can click on New Mexico, I can click on Colorado. I can do the same thing up here if I just want to see if I want to use this as a filter to see what were the sales in August of 2013. This is the KPI, that was the profit percentage. This is the sales by state. So let's jump over to the sales dashboard. So this is what the version in Tableau looks like, and how it looks slightly different than the other 2. And I want to focus on what's different about this dashboard. One thing that's different is you'll notice the other guys have the color encoding in their years. So this dashboard should mention that this dashboard is organized by quarter. So when the main driving filter is the quarter. So when I change the quarter over here, the whole dashboard will filter to just this quarter, right? All the sales, all the different bar charts are for that, reflecting what happened in that quarter, with the exception of the trend charts. I always want to show what's going on over time, so I'm not filtering this by quarter. But you'll also notice that when I change my quarters, the colors of the bars are changing to reflect the year of that quarter. So we have 4 distinct years with 4 distinct colors. So I want to make sure that that's encoded in my data. So when I make a change, the end user knows that, oh, I'm looking at a different year now. So it's very obvious, right? Pedro mentioned that you can't really do a lot with the filters, or where you place the filters in the Cognos dashboard. In Tableau, you can put them wherever you want. In fact, they default to have them on the right. I like to, with my work, I tend to put them on the left. But you can also, there's a number of different options for how you want to format these filters. If there are too many categorical values in the list that you can't display them easily, you can use this as you can show this as a multi-value dropdown. So that's a nice compact way to kind of show the same data. You can, like I said, you can place them anywhere you want on the dashboard, and then you can tell them exactly what you want them to filter. So all these filters are working as global filters. So anytime I click it, it's going to filter the whole dashboard. But if I wanted to just filter one sheet, I could. If I wanted to be just to filter to one sheet in the dashboard, I could. The other types of filters that are available are just like I showed you in that quick demo of building a dashboard. We can create click actions. So if I click on this bar, I can see what is filter the whole dashboard for just this specific product. And you'll notice that when I hover over that point, I've got the chart and tooltip that Sean demoed as well. And the tooltip I put in here is the one I think, I want that tooltip to answer the next question. I think, what's the next question the user is going to want to answer? And I think it's like, who are the top salespersons for each of these products? So that tooltip will change as I mouse over the different products. The same tooltip is available here. Same question, next question being answered, who are my top salespersons? And then on this one, it's like, now it is by salesperson, but maybe I want to see how have they performed relative to target over time. So now my tooltip is going to be that salesperson's entire sales history by quarter for the last 4 years. Sean and Pedro both demoed this sort of drill down to actual fact level detail. This is a really important part of Tableau's whole DNA. They base their product on this idea of overviewing first and then allowing people to filter and drill and then providing details on demand when needed. So details on demand is, tooltips are certainly that. Tooltips on you can put tooltips on any of your points to give additional context and detail. In this example, on my map, I've actually put 2 additional charts. So I've got the sales by person. I've also got, I'm breaking out this region by state. So this is another, something else I wanted to mention that's different about Tableau is we can organize up that geographical region of state and tell it that actually these states roll into a region. And then once I assign it as a geographical element, Tableau will, you can build a map by region just as I've done here. And now I can show you the blowout by state. But I can also add an additional click action here that says, show me the invoices for just this specific region. So now I can go over to that same chart that looks, or table view that looks similar to what Sean and Pedro showed you, providing those details on demand. So the last thing, I apologize, I know I'm moving very fast, and I'm sure Mike is going, come on, pal, wrap it up. The last thing I wanted to show is you can then, this is all done in desktop, but then I can publish this out to server. So I publish this workbook to my Tableau server. This is what that window looks like. I'm not going to do it now, but I've actually already saved it out here. So if I go to this is that same dashboard published on server, and you'll see those same the same click actions, the same filtering works on server, similar to the desktop version. But I have additional options here where I can create custom views, which I can share with colleagues. I can set up alerts. I can schedule myself to be emailed this report on a regular basis, all sorts of things. So that's the end of my spiel. And Mike, I think I gave you a juicy 5 minutes to wrap things up with.
Thanks, Kyle. I feel like you guys are like 3 pugilists in the ring, and you're all trying to land the knockout punch for your particular tool. And you guys all, I'm so impressed with the stuff you guys come up with. Everybody, please stick around because I'm going to give you a quick overview of Centurus. But after that, we have a lot of great questions in the question log. Get those questions in. Our presenters are looking through those right now. And again, if we may run a little over the top of the hour because of this, stick around, we'll answer as many as we can. And any we can't answer, we will post online in a formal question log. So Centurus offers a full spectrum of analytics consulting services. It's all we do. Our clients know us for providing clarity from the chaos of complex business requirements, myriad disparate data sources, and constantly moving targets and ever-changing regulatory environments. We've made a name for ourselves because of our strength bridging the gap between IT and business users. We deliver solutions that give your organization access to reliable, analysis-ready data across your organization so you can quickly and easily get answers at the point of impact in the form of the decisions you make and the actions you take. Our consultants are leading experts in the field of analytics with years of pragmatic real-world expertise, and we are migration specialists. We are so confident in our team and our unique methodology that we back our projects with a 100% money back guarantee that is unique in the industry. We've been at this for a while. We have our client breadth gives you a good idea here of the range of industries in which we've worked, nearly every industry, thousands of successful projects for hundreds of different clients, ranging from the Fortune 500 to the mid-market, spanning nearly 2 decades. We've solved business problems across many industries and functional areas, including the Office of Finance, sales and marketing, manufacturing, operations, HR, and IT. So if you need someone to help you with an analytics project, we'd love the opportunity to leverage our expertise for you. One of the things this presentation brings to the surface is this notion of bimodal BI, which is a term that was coined by Gartner back in 2015, where you're seeing organizations embrace 2 modes. One is your traditional Cognos, business objects, et cetera, environments that are considered these mode 1 tools. And to be fair, the environment has shifted, so you could argue there's some gray area between here. But the way Gartner defines it is mode 1 is for predictable, improving and renovating in more well understood areas, while mode 2 tools are your exploratory, experimenting to solve new problems tools, typically your Tableaus and Power BIs and things of that nature. And what is interesting about this is that Gartner explicitly asked this question. You can read it at the bottom there. Does your organization basically have 2 distinct parts in its IT organization or project team, one that focuses on these mode 1 tools and one on the mode 2 tools? And what's interesting about this is there's no 2018 or 2019 data because I don't think they did the survey, but a full 30 to 40% of people in 2016 said they had this, and that grew significantly in 2017. What's even more important about that is not only did it grow, but the ones that successfully implemented this outperformed their peers, so a full 2/3 of those. So whether your organization is looking to coexist between your mode 1 and mode 2 tools, in other words, adopt bimodal BI, or if you've made the decision from your organizational perspective that the best move is to move from one of these tools to another, we can help you both identify the best way to do that and execute it. So I have our little picture of our Centurus digital artisan down at the bottom that are unique with their pragmatic experience, where they combine expertise in data science with UI expertise and talent in sort of an artistic sense. So that is a quick overview of Centurus. Again, stick around. We've got some great upcoming events here, including some great upcoming events around enterprise security Tableau versus Power BI coming up on Thursday, October 24th, and a what's new in Cognos Analytics 11.4. So if you head over to centurus.com/events, you can register for those there. Again, totally free. If you want to go play with the amazing dashboards that you saw today, head on over to centurus.com and our dashboard gallery at the URL above, so you can actually go and interact with those dashboards live. My understanding is the Power BI and Tableau ones have been updated and are current, and we're in the process of updating the Cognos one. So you'll be able to see everything that was done there today and have access to it. And then lastly, our resource page, where again at the URL above, where you can register for all the upcoming events that I mentioned. You can access past events, hundreds of different events. We've highlighted some ones that we thought might be of interest and are relevant here, and our fantastic blog, which has all of what's top of mind at Centurus these days. So head on over there. Again, that's all free for the taking. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that here at Centurus, we not only develop analytics solutions, but the key to successful adoption of these analytics solutions is proper enablement and training, and we offer it for Cognos, Power BI, and Tableau. We offer organizational/corporate training self-paced learning, e-learning, specific mentoring where we sit down with you and help you solve specific problems. That's a great sort of add-on to traditional training, as well as world-class instructor-led online courses. So we help you learn in the way that's best for you and or your organization. So with that, we are at the top of the hour and we can jump into the Q&A. So if you guys want to fire up your mics here, I think it probably makes sense to start with maybe some of the Cognos questions. Pedro, did you get a chance to look those over? I think, we answered sort of the, does the grid comparison that we offer just look at the client side, or does it also look at the server side of the analytics? And the webinar that we have here today did focus on the more the front end, but especially in the case of our offering does cover the server side, or the more of the stack with appropriate caveats there, especially on the Cognos side, given that pretty much everything runs on the server ultimately, right? You're doing most of that stuff through the web browser. Were there any other questions there, Pedro, that you thought were worthwhile kind of bringing up there?
Let's see here.
I think someone had a question about migrating the data modules, which is a little off topic. It's more of an infrastructure thing, but do you have a sense for how you might do that? A quick answer?
Well, through the normal methods from migrating from development to QA to prod through deployment packages. So if you've done deployment packages before, like when you migrate reports or packages from one environment to the other, it's the same kind of methodology.
Right.
And,
yeah, that's kind of what I figured.
Yeah.
Great. That's very helpful, Pedro. Sean, on the Power BI side, now you had there was a question about end user reports. You wanna tackle that one?
Yeah, so someone asked about what does it look like for users to create their own reports? And this is an interesting question because it really highlights how quickly Power BI is changing and has changed in the very recent past. As I mentioned, you publish your data set to a workspace, and then if someone wants to create their own report, you were up until, I believe, July of this year, you were going to have to give them access to that workspace. So you're going to have to let them into your development space and therefore potentially allow them to delete the data set because the granularity of permissions were so weak. But now we're able to publish that data set and into an app, and then the user can create a report within the Power BI service that points to a different workspace or a different app. Those things, the data set and the report had to be in the same place before, and now they can be in different places, it was definitely a deal breaker before that for a number of my clients. So this is, again, a great example of how the product is maturing. You were always able to create reports in the Power BI service, but the ability to have centralized data sets, single version of the truth, certified information, all of that kind of governance was kind of out the window because of the paradigm that is now shifted, and we can now leverage that for better governance in Power BI.
That's a great answer. Thanks. This is a great one. So, and this person left, unfortunately, but there's a question about how the transformation capabilities in Cognos data modules compare to those in Power BI desktop. And I would maybe add to that, then how do you compare and contrast that at a high level to what Tableau has? And that's that might be that's a kind of a chunky question, but Sean, you want to take a swag at that? Maybe Pedro, you can chime in a little bit, and Kyle.
Yeah, I didn't touch on this obviously in my presentation just for lack of time, but what we leverage in Power BI is under the covers a language called M, just the letter M, and on top of that is a GUI, which allows us to use those connectors like we saw and then bring them in. But before we actually bring them in, we can edit the query, and it'll present us some columns that from our data, and then we can start transforming to our heart's content. We can pivot, we can split, we can concatenate, we can change data types, et cetera, et cetera. And the coolest part about that is it saves the steps you take, so you can jump backwards in time to whatever step you can see how the data changes step by step from a visual perspective, which is really, really great. So I will say from Power BI's perspective, it's very flexible in terms of transformations. I would have to kick it over to my co-presenters to speak to the other platforms.
Well, with Cognos, this is a fairly new area that they've done with the data prep. The data modules have some data prep, some data cleansing routines. You could do, for example, changing null values to a default value like NA. You could split date fields in the year, month, day of week fairly quickly in there. I don't think it's probably on the same par like the new Tableau data prep standalone desktop cleansing tool, which might be something of an Alteryx Lite. But it's a bit it's new, it's there, but it's kind of a light product. It's enough for maybe the last mile, but obviously a lot of heavy ETL will probably have to be done by things on the back end.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Kyle, you want to talk to Tableau a little bit?
Yeah, so Tableau Prep does exactly that. It is what Pedro mentioned, kind of an Alteryx Lite. It allows you to blend and merge multiple data sources and do the cleansing yourself. And it's sort of like I've worked with it a bit. It allows sort of it really empowers the end user to kind of who's got access to multiple data sources, maybe data sources that aren't that clean, to create, and model those data, the data, and get into a form that they can use more effectively in Tableau. So it's pretty robust, but it still it's not a kind of enterprise solution that I can see. Mike, you can certainly correct me on that, but it is it's one that you can create workflows to model your data and change it and schedule it to run and bring stuff in, so you can kind of create your own do your own ETL on your data.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are all really spot on, and it begs the question of where's the best place to do this sort of stuff, right? When you get to a spreadsheet, that's great for doing sort of an initial analysis, but when you want to really scale that to the enterprise, where's the best place to do that? Do you really want your analysts doing that? And some of that's, I think, a response to competitive pressures, right? Cognos was really taking the heat for not being able to pull those local files in, and so you see them being able to use local data files and data modules. And then Tableau came up with Prep, which has a nice visual, kind of ETL light approach to prepping the data. I'd say Power BI kind of has the most built into the single desktop environment, where you can really get into DAX and all the M sort of stuff right there without ever leaving Power BI desktop. So
yeah, I would say so. But to your point, despite how rich I find the data transformation experience in Power BI desktop to be, I absolutely encourage clients to totally ignore it and do that data transformation as far upstream as possible, and think about leveraging Power BI desktop, Power BI as a place to do your visualizations primarily. And if you cannot do that transformation and cleanup elsewhere or upstream or in a more centralized place, then of course, yes, we can leverage Power BI as a fully self-service platform and do the transformations there. But then you're not able to leverage that business logic in other places, like for other data flows that might be going elsewhere, or other platforms like Cognos, without using a custom connector.
Yep.
It kind of goes against the idea of governance.
Absolutely,
so yeah,
right.
we want to be very thoughtful about that.
100%, and that's where where Centurus can certainly help you. We have, I think, in those webinar resources actually. So we have a webinar where we talk in depth about migrations, and it does talk about revisiting where you're doing that sort of stuff. Are these calculations should be pushed into a model? Are there model items that should be pushed into an ETL and a data set? Again, upstream, as you aptly stated, so you get reuse and can apply security in one place, and all those sorts of things. So great stuff. Well, I think we're getting close to 10 after here, so we're want to be respectful and mindful of everyone's time here. We do have a few questions in here that we weren't able to get to, and we'll certainly we will answer those via the questions log that we'll download here, and we'll post those along with the recording and the deck. So with that, I'd like to first of all thank our terrific presenters for another bang up performance there. That was great stuff. Thank you, the audience, for joining us today. Please reach out to us if you have any analytics needs, training needs, whatever, at the good old website address here, our info@centurus.com email, or if you want to pick up the phone. And we encourage you to connect with us and follow us on various social media platforms like LinkedIn, SlideShare, YouTube, Twitter and or Facebook. So thank you for your time today, everyone. And we look forward to seeing you on one of our next events. Thanks for joining us today. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Bye now.